Now let's move on to the defensive side of the ball, and we'll start with my defensive line rankings. The top defensive line in this year's free agency class, according to my rankings, I would have to say, what's good YouTube? It's your boy 3DTV checking in here for the first time today. How are you guys doing today? Hope you guys are doing well. You guys already know I'm doing well. Today we have a little bit of a different video. I hope you guys find it entertaining, so make sure to stick around. Also consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss any future videos like this. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. So here we are, it's April. The NFL draft will be upon us in about a month or so. Teams are making moves, signing free agents, releasing some players. And teams are also looking at the NFL draft to see who's going to be the future of the team. So today I decided to do something cool, something interesting. I put myself in GM shoes as if I were a GM of an NFL team. I made a list of the best free agent signings. These rankings are by position and based on a combination of size of the contract that they signed and how well they played the previous year. And I got my computer over here. I got a couple of notes on here, so I'm gonna be looking over here, a couple of times just to make sure I'm saying everything that I want to say. So let's get into the rankings. So we begin with the quarterback position. The number one free agent quarterback signing, according to my rankings, was Kirk Cousins. He signed a 3-year, $84 million contract, fully guaranteed. At number two, we have Drew Brees, who re-signed with the New Orleans Saints on a 2-year, $50 million deal. And the third quarterback in my free agent rankings is a guy who went from the Minnesota Vikings, guided them to that 13-3 record last year, to the NFC Championship game. Now he's a member of the Denver Broncos, and that is Case Keenum, who signed a 2-year, it's about a $36 million deal. Now we'll move on to the running back position. Number one running back would be Jerick McKinnon, who signed a 4-year, $30 million deal. I think the San Francisco 49ers found their guy after the departure of Carlos Hyde. The number two running back in my free agency rankings is a guy who went from the New England Patriots and now he's going to the Tennessee Titans on a 4-year, $20 million deal. Speaking of Carlos Hyde, he's my number three running back in the free agency rankings this season. He's taking his talents to Cleveland after they signed him to a 3-year, $15 million deal. Moving along, we get to the wide receivers. This year, there's been a lot of wide receivers on the market, and so it was tough to come up with the top three. But at number one, I have Sammy Watkins, formerly of the LA Rams, who signed a 3-year, $48 million deal with the Chiefs to be Patrick Mahomes' top target. The number two wide receiver in my free agency rankings would be Allen Robinson. He signed a 3-year, $42 million deal with the Chicago Bears. And at number three, I have Michael Crabtree, who went from the Oakland Raiders, who is now going to the Baltimore Ravens on a 3-year, $21 million contract. The Ravens just adding another weapon that Joe Flacco can use. Moving further along, we get to the tight end positions. The top free agent tight end who signed with a team in my rankings has to be Jimmy Graham, who signed with the Packers on a 3-year, $30 million deal. That's a big addition for the Green Bay Packers after the surprising release of Jordy Nelson, who's been Aaron Rodgers' top target for the past however many years. Number two, I have Trey Burton, formerly of the Super Bowl winning Philadelphia Eagles. He's taking his talents to Chicago once again on a 4-year, $32 million deal. As you can see, the Bears are they're bringing in all sorts of weapons and building around the core that they have of Mitchell Trubisky and Jordan Howard. And my number 3 tight end in these rankings is Tyler Eifert, who re-signed with the Cincinnati Bengals on a 1-year, $5.5 million contract. Now let's move on to the defensive side of the ball, and we'll start with my defensive line rankings. The top defensive line in this year's free agency class, I would have to say Sheldon Richardson, who signed with the Minnesota Vikings. Now, a lot of you out there might be saying that I'm biased. However, I genuinely think that Sheldon Richardson is a much better player than Ndamukong Suh, who's my number 2 ranked defensive lineman on this list. Now, Sheldon Richardson signed a 1-year, $8 million deal with the Vikings. Ndamukong Suh signed a 1-year deal with the Rams, but it's worth $14 million. My number 3 ranked defensive lineman would have to be Vinny Curry, who anchored that Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl winning D-line last season. He's taking his talents to Tampa Bay, where he signed a 3-year, $23 million deal with the Bucs. Let's just keep cruising along here and we get to the linebackers. I think that the linebacker free agents this year are not as big of names as at other positions, but at the number 1 linebacker spot, I have Nigel Bradham, who re-signed with the Philadelphia Eagles on a 5-year, $40 million deal. So he's going to be a Philadelphia Eagle for a while now. At the number 2 linebacker spot, I have Zach Brown, who signed with the Redskins on a 3-year, $24 million deal. Lastly, at the number 3 linebacker spot, I have Avery Williamson, who signed with the New York Jets on a 3-year, $22.5 million deal. That gets us to my defensive backs rankings. Because there isn't a lot of safeties that are on the free agent market, but there are a lot of cornerbacks, I decided to lump the two together and make a defensive back rankings. My number 1 defensive back is Tyrann Mathieu, who signed a 1-year, $7 million deal with the Texans. At number 2, I have Malcolm Butler, who signed a huge 5-year, $61 million contract with Tennessee.
Hopefully that pays off. I guess we'll have to see.
And finally, the number 3 defensive back in my rankings is Trumaine Johnson. He signed with the Jets on a 5-year, $72.5 million contract. There you have it, folks. That concludes my free agency rankings by positions. Tell me down below in the comments what you guys think about it, and if I missed any names or if some names should have been in my ranking. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed watching that video. Remember to like this video as well as subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. 3D TV signing off here. Till next time.